Hi, welcome to Crisco's Corner. Proud to live in the greatest country in the world. Unfiltered opinions, no PC discussion here. Agree, disagree, hate it, love it, it's all good. Sit back and enjoy some unfiltered commentary. We discuss politics, culture, interviews, and more. Your comments are always welcome. Please help the channel by hitting that subscribe button. Doesn't cost a thing. And as always, thanks for your support. Hi folks, welcome back. I ran across this. This has always been ironic when I see the Washington Post. Democracy dies in darkness. Oh, the irony of that. But anyway, I digress. This is probably one of the few times you'll ever see me do something from the Washington Post, but I thought it was fascinating. Mail-in ballots were part of a plot to deny Lincoln re-election in 1864. Oh, fascinating stuff. And it just shows a sketch there of Pennsylvania voters, Pennsylvania soldiers voting, I should say. Traveling to Baltimore in the fall of 1864, Orville Wood had no way of knowing he would soon uncover the most elaborate election conspiracy in America's brief history. Wood was a merchant from Clinton County in the most northeastern corner of New York. I live in upstate New York. I know where that is. As a supporter of President Abraham Lincoln, he was tasked with visiting troops from his hometown to look after the local ticket because they were voting absentee. They were in the Army. New York legislators had only established the state's mail-in voting system in April. Something new. Mass mail-in voting. What a parallel. With the intent of ensuring the suffrage of white troops battling the Confederate Army. Ensuring the suffrage of people locked down illegally by state governments. You can probably put that in there too. The results of the 1864 elections would heavily affect the outcome of the war. Lincoln thought for sure he was going to lose. There was no question he was going to lose. It's just a matter of by how much and what would happen to the war after that. And McClellan, of all people, the general he fired, I think twice. That's the ironic part of all this. Lincoln and his supporters of the National Union Party sought to continue the war and defeat the Confederacy outright. Meanwhile, anti-war Democrats, also referred to as Copperheads, looked for an immediate compromise with the Confederate leaders and the end of the abolition movement. Troops from New York were allowed to authorize individuals back home to cast a vote on their behalf. Along with their mail-in ballots, troops would assign their power of attorney on slips they required 4 signatures. Now, this is supposed to be pretty tough to cheat, right? 4 signatures. The voters, the person authorized as the recipient, in other words, the person that's voting for them, a witness to the signed affidavit, and a fellow officer, obviously in the military, because they were soldiers. These documents would be sealed in an envelope and shipped back home to be counted in the final vote. This was the process that Orville Wood intended to uphold. He would testify in court later. He quickly found out what a challenge that would be. Wood arrived at Fort McHenry in Baltimore to visit with the 91st New York Regiment. There, an Army captain suggested there had been some checker playing when it came to the gathering of soldiers' mail-in ballots. Checker playing, that's an old term for chicanery or illegal activity. These suspicions of fraud were echoed when Wood visited wounded men at the Newton University Hospital. The rumors of wrongdoing led Wood to the office of Moses Ferry in Baltimore. Ferry had been selected by New York Governor Horatio Seymour to help oversee the voting process for New York's enlisted men. New York? Involved in a voter? F-R-A-U-D? Oh, no. Seymour had vetoed the initial bill to establish mail-in voting and would go on to run against Ulysses Grant in the 1868 presidential election. Of course, we all know how that worked out. Wood masked his suspicions as he entered Ferry's office, portraying himself as a strong supporter of Lincoln's opponent, George McClellan. Yeah, like one of the poll observers did. There was a East Indian lady testifying that she came in and pretended to be a Democrat, and she was treated way differently. But I'll tell you, some things don't change. This was enough to gain Ferry's trust, he later testified. Ferry told Wood that the votes from New York's 91st Regiment had already been tallied. 400 for McClellan and 11 for Lincoln. Overwhelming. Gosh. This is what, 97%? I'm doing the quick math here. For one side. Wow. I wonder if that's ever happened before. Anyway, I digress. Wood returned to the office later and, following Ferry's instructions, began forging signatures of the 16th New York Cavalry. Signature verification. Not done. Oh, even back then. I wonder, gosh, can you think of any time that's happened again? Well, get back to me on that in the comment section. Meanwhile, clerks sat across the room signing ballots from the roster of names Wood had brought with him from home. Wood asked to personally deliver these fraudulent ballots, but Ferry said he would have to receive final approval from his colleague in Washington, Edward Donahue, Jr. Donahue soon arrived in Baltimore and met with Wood. It was revealed during this conversation that around 20 co-conspirators were already at work in D.C. to aid in the plot to deliver votes to McClellan. The following day, Wood watched as Donahue and his crew formed a sort of assembly line, passing the blank papers along to one another to be signed with the names of active enlisted men, wounded dead soldiers, and officers who never existed. Dead people and people you can't verify who they are. Gosh. I can't think of it offhand, but, has that ever happened before? Anyway, get back to me. In addition to operations in D.C. and Baltimore, the scheme extended back to New York. Donahue had received rosters of soldiers from military officials and members of law enforcement. A letter from General J.A. Farrell read, "Enclosed in this package you will find tickets. Also, a list of names of actual residents of Columbia County, now members of the 128th Regiment, with my best wishes for your success." They just needed the names. A letter from Albany Sheriff H. Cromdell offered to send additional men to assist in Baltimore. The letter read, "All is well here, and we are confident of complete success." We know we're going to win. Don't concede. Oops, sorry. "It is unnecessary to say that all here have entire confidence in your skill in abetting and hope you like your help." Also discovered in Ferry's office was a list of around 400 names belonging to sick and wounded soldiers under treatment in a nearby hospital. In reference to the roster, Ferry joked, "Dead or alive, they all had cast a good vote." Gosh. Was this 18? This was 2000. Oh, I'm sorry, 64. Ferry, Donahue, and their fellow conspirators found humor in their work. Yeah. Just laughing while you're putting cardboard to cover up windows and poll observers and laughing. I wonder when that happened. One accomplice mocked the outcry he expected from abolitionist newspapers following the corruption of the election. The men bragged about their past success in fixing local elections back home. Yeah, it's quite a profession. Pays well, too, from what I gather. Together, the men had shipped crates of fraudulent votes back to New York, but their scheme was over. Wood reported the operation to authorities. Ferry's office was searched, and on the morning of October 27th, my brother's birthday, coincidence, 1864, less than 2 weeks before the election, he and Donahue stood trial before a military commission. Oops. Ferry offered a full confession that same day, even offering up the names of others involved in the scheme. Donahue proved more of a challenge. Following the first day of the trial, a reporter for the New York Times. Oh, there's the New York Times. All the news that's fit to print. The honest electors of the state of New York have escaped an extensive and fearful fraud, a fraud in keeping with the proclivities of the party on whose behalf it was initiated. but one that, if unexposed, might have subverted the honest will of the people and left the state and the nation at the mercy of those who would make peace with rebellion and fellowship with traitors. They would cheat, win the election, and then make deals with people that are traitors to the United States and hated the United States. This is 1864. I'm sorry, I lost track for a minute. Arrests in New York and Washington continued to mount as Donahue returned to trial. Following Wood's damning testimony and supporting evidence, Donahue begged for mercy from the court. He was a young man, newly married, with no previous record. He visibly wilted as he realized the weight of the current situation no longer expressed the defiance which he had entered the proceedings. The judge advocate addressed the tribunal, saying that Donahue had engaged in one of the most gigantic frauds ever attempted in America, a fraud which, if it shall be successful, will, in my opinion, have produced a destruction of our entire country, and our war for the preservation of the Union will be practically at an end and futile. To put our country back together from states that wanted to leave. And he lost his confidence when put on trial. I'm confused here. The judges in this scenario, I shouldn't say scenario, in this time in history were following the law. Oh, okay. I got confused for a minute because there's judges in courts that side with their ideology rather than the law. So bad me. I got confused for a minute. In times following Lincoln's victory, he had won 221 electoral votes to McClellan's 21. Anti-abolitionist newspapers attacked his legitimacy, calling the trial and other aspect of the conspiracy conducted by the president to ensure his reelection. The commission that oversaw Ferry and Donahue's trial recommended life in prison for the two men who sought to corrupt the election by mail. The president, who would soon be slain, approved. Now, life in prison. See, what happens now is when you lie or you commit fraud or do any of those things, you get a lot of money. You get to go on TV, you get to go on podcasts, you get to go on radio shows, and they pay you to go on there because you're bringing in listeners and viewers. Boy, I'll tell you, we've really progressed quite a long ways to the good, whereas you committed that in the old days, you got life in prison for voter fraud, to you get paid now for the same thing. Boy, our civilization has really progressed. Now we reward those kind of things. Anyway, enough of my sarcasm. I think you get the point. It's fascinating, and this just proves my point. When those of, actually the younger people or the ultra-progressives, I call them flat earthers, say that the Constitution of the United States is old and archaic, horse and buggy legislation, doesn't fit in today's times. The Constitution is set up for one simple reason. My simple truth, I would say my truth, I hate that expression, but the simple truth of the fact that people suck and they will always do the wrong thing given the opportunity, and especially if the wrong thing gains them a lot. And here it is. They wanted the war to end. They wanted McClellan to win. And they thought they were at a just cause. In fact, the one guy joked about it. Just arrogance. So not much has really changed. It's not horse and buggy legislation. It's not horse and buggy constitution or rules. The rules are the same in 1864, 1764, 1464, 2264, and 2020. They're all the same. People suck. And we have to have as many safeguards as possible and leave as small loopholes as possible So those that don't care about the rules and just their ideology don't cheat the system. That rule has never changed. And that rule is not archaic. And it's not horse and buggy. It's just people. Our people are people, both good and bad. We do some wonderful things and we do some horrible things. And the rules are in place to keep the bad people from succeeding. Anyway, folks, I thought you'd find this article interesting. I know I did. But I still can't get over the Washington Post head monogram there. Democracy dies in darkness. Talk about ironies. Anyway, folks, until next time, goodbye and good luck.